welcome back to the Global DNA series. Today's episode is going to be called Spiritual Epigenetics, and I am joined with the fabulous Giselle Koy. Let that in, girl. Giselle Koy is a transformational coach who channels soul-fulfilling destinies for visionaries. She is known for helping others to step into their full power on the world stage. She speaks on tuning your spiritual gifts into wealth and has given keynote presentations on stages such as PaleoFlex, Cosmic Awakening, the Conscious Media Festival, and she's a certified epigenetics coach. Giselle speaks on the topic of spiritual epigenetics and the area where science and spirituality meet. She trains people to be more lit by combining spirituality with high performance training techniques to look and feel younger and better than they ever have. Giselle is the founder of the Conscious Media Festival and Conscious Visionary Women. She is the host of Giselle Koy podcast, speaking with thought leaders about the new human emerging in this accelerated time. Giselle serves as a divine channel, authoring 6 books: The Modern Muse, The Buddha Field, I Consciousness, The Platinum Ray, The Golden Christed Ray, and The Code of Immortality. Thank you for joining us, Giselle.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I would like to just thank you for the level of work that you are doing on the planet.
Oh,
because I mean, even the descriptor of your summit is activating, accessing higher DNA through ancestry. It's such great work. It's such deep work. It's such gifted work. So I just want to acknowledge you for even putting this together. So when that kind of calling at that level comes into a groundedness where you're actually producing things and putting it out in the world, that's when the magic happens. So on behalf of all of us, thank you.
Thank you. This is where the magic happens. And, you know, I truly believe, like you truly believe, in the new human and the infinite potential. And is the really beautiful, conscious channel, multidimensional channel who's also practical. You're another divine soul who's bringing in science and spirituality together, because I truly believe that the more that we wield these divine sciences with consciousness, the more power with the creations and the more expanded frequency of love and light that we can create within the universe. And so thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And you know what we know that the scientists don't know? And they'll get around to it. That is that consciousness trumps everything. So do you agree with me?
Oh, I totally agree with you. And we're going to have some speakers here who are from the science world and like William Burke, who is, I think, one of a new group of emerging scientists and quantum physicists who know about the consciousness and going into experiments knowing that their consciousness changes things. And instead of it being, like next level type of heart-based scientific research.
And let's give Sam Harriman some credit for his quote that spirituality is just physics not yet understood. So he definitely gets it, and you're right. There is a whole huge group that does get it. So I'll back off that statement just a little bit.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what spiritual epigenetics is. We've done a lot of talking about epigenetics through these series, but what is spiritual epigenetics? Let's talk about that.
Okay, so in the field of epigenetics, the application of that these days is towards high performers. So there's a lot of high performers, especially in sports, athletics, where they just want to go next level. So they get into deeply measuring and high precision documenting all the stuff they're doing so they can take these bodies, make them perform better, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's a level beyond that, and that's what I call spiritual epigenetics. So we're still training to be at a greater level, an enhanced level, but more about this body vehicle becoming a vehicle for God consciousness. I mean, this is not a new thought. Yogananda talks about it. Jessica Char, on and on and on through the ages. I mean, this is the vehicle for God consciousness. And when we apply some of those same principles, some precision protocol training techniques to the field of our spiritual acceleration, we can get stunning results. So we're just moving the training protocols towards the area of spirituality. So we're training to carry more light. And who doesn't want to accelerate their spiritual evolution?
Yeah, I mean, this is the work that we're doing with DNA, and you know, the work that I'm doing with DNA is that, you know, we're going from 12 strand to 24 strand of DNA, and we're taking 2 more strands, or we're creating new vehicles of light, because we are turning this temple into a light body. And there are, when you really start to understand the divine sciences, that there are specific ways in order to do that. So what are some of your protocols that you're using for people to access and be able to maintain more light in their body, more frequency? Because we know that frequency changes everything. I mean, light and frequency and consciousness organize all matter around us. So what do your protocols look like?
Okay, before we get into those, I want to just say something kind of more in the spiritual lane, and that's talking about codes. So, of course, DNA is a code itself, right? The deoxyribonucleic code. So it's actually an acid. Anyway, so I read recently and learned recently about the different kinds of light workers. And one of the kinds of light workers, there's healers, there's seers, there's prophecy, gift. There's so many different kinds. And then there's one called Divine Blueprint Code Carrier. And I went, oh, that's what I am. And of course, that's what you are. And when you are one, you know it. And it's not because, I mean, everyone carries these codes. We're not elite in this capacity, but for some reason, we are able to translate them out into the world. And also the way it works is by how we do things. Isn't that freeing? Like, that's a whole new category of epigenetics. How you do things is actually putting a code into the world and actually affecting this beautiful antenna, which is our DNA, because it's really just a super high calibrated, high level, multi-dimensional antenna. So I love the work that we can actually absorb codes. This, to me, this is the essence of epigenetics, by everything around us. The vibration, the salt in the air, the thoughts, the 3 billion base pairs of genes I am sharing with you right now in this moment. Get in a crowd of people and that's magnified times billions. So I love going to this fact that codes are simply there, and there's all kinds of codes, and they're one of the #1 ways we upgrade. It's not talked about a lot, obviously, but that's your work, and that's my work too. The fact that we are sitting right now, we are just emitting codes, Acurda, right now. And that's so beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I love that our work is able to, our mission, I'll say, is able to take us in places where we're doing direct transmissions with each other and sending direct transmissions out into the world. And this is what I really love about that. And that these, you know, these codes that we talk about, they are constantly organizing with the thoughts that with our consciousness. And like you said, the interactive all things with food, everything that we think and do, every choice we make is organizing our body into new gene expression, using codes, organizing codes with light and geometry and consciousness and sound into a complete new structure at every moment, every second you are new, every moment you are new, everything that you do in the now is so powerful. And that's what I love. And I love watching inside DNA and the transformations that happen through people with these codes, with the geometries, how they shift and they move and they become more complex. And we talked about this, you know, a few weeks ago, just like these accelerated geometries that are coming online with the new human.
Oh, by the way, that is one of the indicators of a code carrier. that they see things in geometry. And you and I talked about this when we first talked. They see geometry being created. Like right now, all of our data points are like connecting,
creating geometry, moving out.
So cool. We were on the same page. So back to protocols. So dialing us back into that. I like to call it, there's many ways we can do it. One of the first ways, I call it vibrational stacking. So that's kind of like taking what you just said and making it practical into practical steps one can follow. And that's breaking down everything in our field. Our diet, you know, how high vibe is that? Because everything matters. Our sleep patterns, our sleep is so important. There are new studies that we all need 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. You miss it, you feel it, because we deregulate and downregulate like 7,000 genes when we become sleep deprived. I also read a new study today that women who go to bed at the same time every night as are really close have less body fat. Like you actually lose weight if you get on a good sleep cycle. And not only that, your brain is cleansing itself at night. It's called the glymphatic with the G system, where the brain needs to actually wash itself every single night. So you need that full cycle to happen. So we think sleep is so basic. It's so important. So important. Also, all the supplements we take, we line those up so that a lot of us take things we don't need. And there's also a whole new school, which is why one of the reasons I got into epigenetics, of peptides, which are these proteins. Peptides are the proteins that actually build the DNA. So it's like taking supplements for your DNA. And they're very dialed in. They're dialed in to mimic other pharmaceuticals. Like there's a peptide that mimics the human growth hormone. And so we all know that the human growth hormone, there's a lot of pros and cons there, but when it's a peptide, it's a protein imitating that. And this goes on and on. I mean, the field is growing exponentially every second. So exciting. Love knowing about all of that.
I love that. And this falls into, you know, one of my next courses is going to be on conscious regeneration, of how to really regenerate the whole body. And one of the things that I'm looking at right now is, you know, telomeres. And telomeres are basically like, as the typewriter types the sentence, you know, this is how it goes back to the beginning and then copies itself again. And when our telomeres break down, the copy runs out. So we are copies upon copies upon copies in different frequencies. So how do we feed the telomere? Because this is really part of the anti-aging, part of conscious regeneration.
Well, check this out. There is a peptide known as it's either called the pithalon or a pitolon. People say it both ways. And it has been proven to grow the telomere. And the protocol for taking that is a series of 21-day injections twice a year. I know many people who are working on this. Some of my clients are doing this. And you're actually growing the telomeres and they are measuring it. How fascinating is that? It's like, check. We can grow them back out and they're showing it.
I love that.
I know.
Send me that research, because you know, that's one of my fields of study right now is the telomere. So I love that.
That's probably the peptide that most relates to actively affecting the DNA, besides everything else affecting the environment. Another one is the breath. Okay, the breath is huge. I have relearned breathing, and so let me back up just a little bit. So one of the things I love about spiritual epigenetics is that we are literally on time with the divine plan. And the divine plan was that at this moment in humanity, we would be able to have the capacity to be able to receive these levels of light. So it's relationship of the cosmic rays coming in, what's coming from the sun, which is so dynamic, versus our own evolution to be able to receive. So it had to work in tandem and only is happening at this time. So that makes it really special. And I love knowing that. And then back to the ancients that knew so much about this, of course. And so I said just Jessica Char earlier, but he was one of the masters of breath. He knew that through breathing patterns and breathing practices, you could dial in certain levels of consciousness, certain flavors of consciousness It was like an entire library of what you can do with the breath. And we see it today. We see the Wim Hof method, which is for something. We see all these different ways, but what I like to work with it is what I call the elegance of breath. And I have an image of Kuan Yin riding the dragon. So here's the dragon. I mean, we are getting so much, we are taking so much in these days. I mean, here we are, March 2020. The amount of information, activities, things that we're taking in is like exponentially growing every day. And I know everyone feels that. And so that's the dragon. The dragon are these times that are super accelerating. Yet we can just ride the dragon with elegance, and we do it by controlling our breath. And what I've learned through Dr. Michael Hamilton and others is there's a whole new science about the level of CO2 in the brain. So there is a thing called hypercapniac and hypocapniac that determines the level of CO2 in your brain, that determines your state of mind, your consciousness, how you do life. And the thought of like, take a deep breath, breathe in, constantly breathe, is the exact opposite of what the research is showing. So do you want to hear what the research is showing on this, which is so fascinating?
Yeah, I was going to say also with CO2 in the brain, it regulates your serotonin and melatonin,
Yes.
right? Which comes from, again, like the feeding of the pineal gland. The pineal gland is a gland that oversees all of this, but it needs fuel. It needs oxygen. It needs.
That is a great connection right there. I love that. So one of the ways I really retrained myself, retrained how I breathe in the last 3 months. And what I've done, part of the training, is to make my breath really small. So this gasping, all that stuff is just like hyper accelerating all the CO2, where we're actually like making the breath small. It's belly breath, of course, because we don't want this upper respiratory stress breath. So it's belly breathing. And you can begin by start counting your breaths per minute. Most people breathe like 19 breaths per minute. Ideal, you're breathing 6 breaths per minute, and that's like a baby sleeping. So literally the air is just coming in as the body needs. It's like a merge, like you're merging with the oxygen around you. And then the exhale is just a releasing without any kind of effort whatsoever. It's just like letting it out, and then the breath comes back in. Isn't that fascinating? To just like a fish underwater, it just merges with the oxygen through osmosis. Well, same principle for us. We're here, we're only taking the breath we need without ever a gasp, without ever grabbing it. That's like a whole psychology of lack mentality, to grasp for breath. I mean, there are uses for it. I'm not shunning any uses, athletic uses, but in this consciousness game, like I have noticed such a difference. And I exercise with my mouth closed. I go to the gym. I'm working on learning to run with my mouth closed. I get like 5 steps, but I'm working on it. And it's such a game changer and that is Kuan Yin riding the dragon. It's like this control and this merging with, and this practice of an elegant blend of you within your environment and getting what you need. And it's this whole idea of being provided everything you need. I don't even have to go get breath. It is just in my system already by the infinite nature of the generous universe.
That's absolutely beautiful. That's like just a soul merge with your breath into the resonance of everything that is. That's such a beautiful training. And I'm a runner. I love run. I learned years ago to run from the Ayurvedic perspective, which is with your mouth closed.
Wow.
Because what's really fascinating is that the reason that you run with your mouth closed is because your nose, the hairs of your nose, and is not only a cleaning but a heating mechanism to the breath, so that you never get chilled cold air into your lungs, and never.
Are you able to hear my audio correctly?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, good. Because you just cut out just for a second there. So good. Okay, so let's keep going. I did not know that about Ayurvedic. That makes perfect sense. Of course, they're ahead of the game. And do you run with your mouth closed when you run?
Yes, that's what I had said, is because that way, again, when you're cleaning it with your nose, but you're also warming the breath as it comes in, so no cold breath hits your lungs. Because when cold breath hits your lungs, that is when you start getting the wind and the wet in your lungs, and creates a whole issues. If you want to look at it from the Chinese perspective, the Chinese medicine perspective, or the Ayurvedic perspective.
Wow.
So then it starts bringing down your energetic field.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, so that's just something everyone can try with their breath. I want to invite them all to just time your breath for a while. It's kind of eye-opening. And then when you become aware of that, and then you're just you want to be one of those, it's like a Buddha, where you're just walking around belly breathing, and it changes your reaction time, how you react to the world. It changes how you respond, pretty much changes your life in a lot of ways. I remember I used to run around the house and do a lot of stuff, and it was almost like I was hyperventilating. And I thought that was really good. I'm like, great, I'm doing all this deep breathing, running up and down the stairs, doing all this stuff, packing, and I would just get this breath super pronounced, and it never really felt good. And now I'm doing the exact opposite of that. And I'm the stress, I was creating stress as I was running around, thinking I was improving my athletic ability. So a lot to relearn there. I want to move now into the heart frequency technology. And I'm sure that everyone on your summit has been talking about this, right? It's it has to be mentioned at every time, because that's where it all happens. What is
God spark?
Yes. What is the motor driving all of this? And that is, of course, the heart. That is the heart. So, who said it? Sandra Walter says that, it's non-negotiable. To do any of this kind of work, we have to have complete heart coherence. And I agree. I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of science out there about it. You can actually measure it. Where I coach, we do a lot of measures with the Piron. We do a lot of measuring of heart feedback. HeartMath has that thing you can watch, and you can actually watch your coherence. And I like taking that into groups of people and creating geometry and heart coherence. Right now, you're just dialed into me, and can you feel your heart expanding with mine? We're just just by taking, it's a matter of taking our attention, and the antenna goes, oh yes, thank you for taking me back to that place where as beings, we would rather be anyway, in the heart space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, my understanding of the heart is that, a lot of people think that the 7 seals are actually the chakral system. And I think it's a multi-dimensional perspective, and it's even deeper than that, that there are 7 chambers in the heart, and each one of them actually has a different type of rhythmic pump that creates the whole frequency of the heart, that creates what we call a heartbeat. There's actually 7, and they each have a color, and they each have a frequency of a sound. And that when they come together, they open up the 8th chamber of the heart with our original God spark. And it's the representation of our original God spark. And when that happens, it's we magnify out all of these other, we're talking about complex geometry, start opening up. People think that we have 1 or 2 or, a few torsion fields, but we are actually so many torsion fields within torsion fields within torsion fields within DNA chakral system, through our heart, through the upper chakras, through the lower chakras. We are nothing but torsion fields. All started from the spark behind the heart, the 8th chamber of the heart, and the 7 chambers being the absolute frequency.
I love that. I have never heard it that way. That is fabulous. And I also love how you just accidentally or on purpose explained the geometry. That was an explanation of the geometry of energy. So call it magnifying, amplifying, replication, fractalizing, fragmenting, whatever it is. It's this multi-layered thing. The artist Jean-Luc Belozzi, I think I'm saying it right. he does a great job of putting it into visuals. I'm going to spell his name. We'll add the spelling of his name because John Luke, Buzoli. He lives in Hawaii, and he is able to, in artwork and through animation, capture these frequencies that are just so layered. It's the layering of all these toroidal fields. So I love how you said that, and I didn't know. Of course, that makes sense. If we have 7 chambers, 7 pumps, each one creating its own fractaled out geometry. Think of like, it's like a ripple in a pond where it gets all those cross hatchings, but super holographically.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a fractal geometry of the heartbeat of God.
Wow. Wow. So I know you think that the heart has like the most, important aspect to this work. And I would have to agree with that. Right?
What I feel about that is, our soul came here for a reason. And we came here to experience and to have new experiences, to expand our consciousness. And our heart allows us to have that experience, allows us to have the emotionality and the impact quantumly throughout the multiverse, the call and response to God. I truly believe the voice is in the heart, comes through the heart.
I wonder if our heart transmission right now, because you and I are sharing deep heart space right now. We just are. And I hope this transmits in the summit when people watch this, because I am feeling it massively. And maybe it's just the magnification of each other. But I hope this expands out from here.
I'm sure it will.
Sure it will. So that's the heart. Moving on to other protocols. You touched on one thing, and that was what we're here to do. And I list that as one of the protocols for acceleration of consciousness, and that is knowing why we're here. And a lot of us at different times of our life don't really know. It's like, I remember when I got my first destiny reading 6 years ago, I was told that I was a lifestyle designer and I forgot what all it was, but it's pretty much what I'm doing now, one-on-one coaching and helping people find out why they are here. But until I got that and understood that, so much of my energy and my beingness was just kind of, it's not floundering, but it stays in question mode. And then when you line up with this desired perception of self, or this, what you're here to do, there's an acceleration that begins, and all this other stuff falls away, and you're making better choices with things that are not serving you, that are not towards this purpose. You're motivated by different things. You choose different friends. You choose a different life. You might move somewhere. And I think that's really important. And that's why I love that kind of work, because when you introduce someone to their life trajectory, all their higher teams have to say what they have to say, what they're here to do, what energy they're holding, what codes they're holding. It's very freeing. And I think that that's just like not spoken of as much in the world of epigenetics, but mission certainty, that's a huge upgrade.
It is a huge upgrade. And again, going back to, everything is encoded in our DNA and it's all right there. It's just, how do we make contact with that, conscious contact with that part of our genetics that unfolds that starts creating that for us, that starts magnetizing through our field, and to really truly powerfully step into that. When you are truly in your soul mission, and I mean, it is everything, and you come to that place with confidence. There's nothing that anybody can do or say to take you off of that path. It is just like so clear, and it is so powerful.
Yes.
And I mean, everything organizes around it.
Yes. It's an organizing principle of life. I can't say this to most groups that I talk to, but I can say this here to this group. And that is, one of my sole purposes is so simple. I help high priestesses land their gifts on earth. So how simple is that? But how much do you totally get that, right? I help high priestesses land their gifts on earth, because I talk to so many women It's usually women that are really, they've already stepped into their purpose, but they want to even go more. And they're like, well, what do I do to create that on earth? What does that look like? Because they have their gifts, but then actually bringing it out to the world, like you have learned to do, like I have learned to do, we need help with. And so helping high priestesses land their gifts, bam. And there's so many high priestesses, they have different names. They could be a CEO of a company. They could be, you know, it doesn't mean they're literally a high priestess. It's just like they're powerful leaders, women leaders, because we know women are the leaders of this planet. It's just a fact. It's not a political statement. It's just, we are the leaders. And when they're in all walks of life, they're the woman who's staying at home taking care of her children. She's a high priestess. So I just love that work. And I love seeing everyone looking for that in a high priestess role, because that's what's up.
Well, I think that we're coming to a place of divine union with the masculine and feminine, and that each masculine role and feminine role gets to start coming together powerfully and co-creating. And it takes strong people who have done the work, who are in their energetic divinity, their God mission, to truly be able to come together and be in this union to co-create. And this is where we are at right now, is what you're doing is another level of co-creation. And I truly believe that this is what we are being called to right now, is co-creating, is supporting each other, being the highest potential in life, so that we can truly change things here on this planet, so we can build the new earth. It is not a vision anymore. We are building it, and can only do this together. And the more that we support each other, the more that we honor each other, the more that we love each other, the faster this is going to go.
Love that. I love how you said all that. And of course, what you're talking about is embodiment. So it's literally taking these energies, especially the combined energies, embodying it so that we are actually living it here on earth. You know, we've been on the mountain experiencing it in other dimensions for so long, and now like, hey, walk down the mountain, down into the village, and do it down there. What does that look like? What is your sign going to say? What kind of money are you going to take? What is your energy exchange? What does that look like? And that's what we're doing. We're like, well, did you get the call to leave the mountain and go down to the village? Yeah, let's go have some fun. And it's really kind of beautiful, because it's back into the sensual experience of planet Earth. I've always thought that Earth is like, when we're at this level, this is like a vintage sensual experience, Earth. Like, we're these 12-dimensional bodies, whatever, and we go, oh yes, Earth, the ice cream, the mowed grass, the sensuality, the peaches ripening. You know, we remember these things that are so sensual about this existence. There's a movie there's a science fiction movie with Tom Cruise where it's a famous movie. I don't recall the name, but he takes his ship and surveys the perimeter of the galaxy a lot. And then he kind of sneaks off, and he goes to this place. I mean, Earth is long gone, but he goes to this place on Earth, and he walks in this little cabin that's still there. And there's running water, and then there's a phonograph, and he puts record on, he makes coffee, and he smells the coffee, and he's going back to this level of sensuality. Meanwhile, the rest of the time he's in this like super high-tech space world. And that scene says everything to me, because that's where we are right now. We get to do that.
Yes, we do get to do that. And, you know, one of the things that I really love about you is that, you know, part of this series was really to bring forward the consciousness of the new human, one that we're designing ourselves, right? Through our epigenetics, through our DNA. We have conscious design of everything around us. 2 is that if we really want to have free energy on the planet, which I believe is a part of human liberation and planet liberation, we get to understand energy and freedom inside of ourselves, understand that we are the energy and freedom, and that we get to understand freedom and sovereignty with our soul through this embodiment. And this last part is the economy of ascension and grace. And, you know, how do we start valuing each other again, valuing all life again, valuing our superpowers and being able to create wealth and abundance with them, create new light infrastructure and new economies. And this doesn't always mean financial. There are a lot of different ways to look at abundance, right? But you are a practical person who helps people hone their gifts and be able to translate that into the physical. And that's one of the things that I love about you. So, you know, what are your protocols for that?
Thank you for loving me like that. And I have so many thoughts. So my protocols for that, basically what I do is I like to channel the information, because if we all could easily see our destiny, it'd be so easy. It's not that easy, because destinies unfold over time. They find you, they're layered, they're rich. Like, it's not just being, that's where you're going. This is your evolution of your soul evolution. You're working with these guides. You're working with Lady Portia to bring in measurements and alchemy and portions, and really knowing the portions and ratios of things on planet Earth. I mean, it's just deep and rich, and you start connecting to the codes that are already within you. So I encourage everyone to get a reflection of that. And until I had one, I actually ignored mine for years. And then it came back later. I'm like, I wish I would have just listened to the destiny, because it was correct. I had this other idea of what I thought I was. So that's kind of a whole story in itself. But I encourage whatever you can do to find, a lot of times it is channeled, you know. Also surrendering and letting reality rise around you is another way. Like, we're always striving so hard. If we can just sit back and let reality rise, it will show us the way. And when we have that big trust factor and we're not striving so hard for it, it will show us the way. And so that's kind of like a whole approach to life, out of the worry, striving, into the relaxation. Like, I call it like stepping into your queenship. Like, oh wait, that's gonna come to me. And this has been a hard lesson for me to learn, because I've always been like striving and going, and I'm just like a hard charger. Like, I'm so aggressive with everything, and I just want to get it now and do it really big. And then with that approach in my earlier life came a lot of worry, anxiety, stressful living, pushing the grind. And then, so I've trained myself and am in the process of training, like, to change my behavior when that comes up, wait. The queen just kind of sits back and knows it's going to come to her. And that's been like one of my biggest lessons lately. And I'm still working on that, but that's a game changer right there. Mm-hmm. That protocol. So anyway, back to your question. Yeah, find out. If you don't know, that's an investment in yourself you should make immediately, because talk about reorganizing your geometry. When you know that, you've already talked about it so well, and that's true. And that is correct.
Yeah. When you start working with DNA, at least with the work that I'm doing, when you start to clear and recode the lower strands of DNA, as we start activating the higher strands of DNA, your soul mission is encoded in your higher strands of DNA. And when you start to become a clear channel for this, it is like channeling. And I love you said channeling. It is like channeling. It is a deep knowing and expression of self. And knowing feels a lot like a channel.
Absolutely. It's just is. It's just like, it's like the clairsentience comes in of just a constant knowingness of things. And it's kind of like this new ratio exists, where you're not moving too fast in life. You're letting life meet you. And then you're also bringing in this higher information. I mean, that's a divine cross right there of that sweet spot. I mean, sometimes we're going too fast. Sometimes we're not bringing the information, but that holographic cross, that's the intersection of where we're all wanting to be more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's an out there And we talk about like the divine sciences and what you're talking about, we're talking about this alchemy of being able to stand in this place. And this place is a place of a new human, which requires new creations outside of like old systems. And, you know, the old system was a masculine system, and it was a pushing system. It was, if you're not doing, you're not succeeding, you're not valuable, you're not, you know, whereas like the new system of creation has a more feminine approach to it. It has a more, I will say, a balanced masculine and feminine approach. And so that is like you create, you move it out into the quantum field, and it comes back to you. And then when it comes back to you, you are in your, if you want to call it your queenship or your divinity, it comes back into you and flows back into you. And it's the receiving point. And I think we've been kind of came from a system where we weren't allowed to receive. It was just go, 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 do, be producing. And there is a of movement, of breath, like you talked about the breath at the beginning. It is a breath. It is an exhale of your divinity and an inhale of divinity.
And you know what else? We were not receiving back then. It's like we would have sat back and relaxed. We would have seen it coming in, but all these other things had to line up also. So we were not incorrect thinking, wow, if I sit back and receive, there's nothing coming. But now that is changing. Our consciousness is changing that. And I love how you put that in a bigger frame about the masculine and the patriarchal society. That does exist within a bigger frame. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you have a beautiful gift for everyone, and I would love to talk about your gift in the book, the Codes of Immortality.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I have two more protocols I want to share.
Oh yeah, let's go for that too.
Well, I'm going to go through those, and then I have a really good question at the end I want to ask you. Okay, how does that sound? So let's go. Of course, these are things that everybody knows, but I just want to go over the sound as technology as far as activating 12 to 24 strand. And a lot of the music I listen to is from the Hathors, the multi-dimensional music of Tom Kenyon. I think he's just doing super masterful work. And I feel like his sound healing has a massive body of work, and so do other sound healers. But they literally, that sound healing is creating the geometry. There's one piece he has, it's called the Trillium. And I will literally play that and let it just go through my whole house. It's like 22 minutes. And I'll say to the music, would you please organize this reality right now? And it will organize my thoughts, it'll organize the day, it'll just like get everything into a coherent geometry. So I love that. And the other one was the codes and decrees, which we're already talking about, which is, of course, the light rays made manifest. You know, it comes as a light ray, and then it goes into words, and it comes and it's spoken out of the mouth. And so that is literally light made manifest as one form of code, and decrees, speaking it. And we have these decrees that bring in things such as, I have a book called The Platinum Ray that brings in the codes of impeccability. It comes from Avalon and all the knighthood and all this Templar energy, and the Golden Christed Ray, which is of course the heart activator, the heart of all. When all man feels totally lost, it's the heart that comes through and sings through. It's the grace of Jesus asking you to walk with him, saying, walk with me. And you're like, yes, I will. It's the grace of all this energy. Like, he's such massive rock star heart energy. And then the Rainbow Ray, which is the bridge consciousness ray into our higher dimensions. That's a bridge ray. And then another book that's not out is called the Magenta Ray, and that's the ray of the beyond. And I call that the 13th ray. That's bringing in all of these higher level, unknown, magical, dancing DNA, atomic, photonic dancing that's creating this new kind of energy. It's like the tip of a flame. It's like the vapor that comes off the flame that's constantly dancing. If you go to the tip of a fire, it's always dancing and transforming and moving, and it's that. And it's also the kiss of our highest selves through all the dimensions, hitting our faces like a sunbeam. I love that feeling of like, there's an interdimensional kiss coming through in the ray of the beyond. So all of these things, when we hear them, maybe for the first time, we're like, that's activating. And then one of the books is the Codes of Immortality that came through me. I wrote it in one sitting. It just came all the way through, and it's all about the primordial cell. And the primordial cell is something that's been talked about in the Kabbalah through the Adam Kadmon body as the original God self body of man. So if man, God were a body, it would be the Adam Kadmon body. And within that body was a primordial cell. And that cell carries the map for all of us stepping into this superhuman new human we are, the Adam Kadmon body. And it carries the map and the way to get back to that, which is tracing through all these miles and miles and eons of time and DNA back to primordial cell, which is basically the state of suspended illumination. And that's where we live as immortals, in that energy. And you could just feel that energy. I could see you feel it, the state of suspended illumination. And I think that's really amazing. So that's in the book, and I would like to gift that to people. And that is really simple. Should I tell them how to do it right now?
You can, and then we're also going to have your speaker page up, your bio, your links, all of it too. So
yeah, you're just going to text a word, the immortality word, and you'll get the book. So I really want that. That's a gift for humanity brought through. And so I love the opportunity of sharing that. And now I have a question for you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I love this question. I'm asking every advanced being such as yourself that I get to run across this question. So I'm deep in the game of enhancement and going to this new human, creating new earth, moving towards this thing or returning to it, however you want to look at it. So my question is, what happens when we get there, and where exactly are we going?
I think that there is a no getting there, and I think that we already are there. It's just, have we let go of our own, we'll say, different levels of personal and soul identity in order to sit in that place, to fully be able to resonate in that place? And I think that's kind of what the ascension process is. It is the letting go of all of these stories that are not our truth, so that we can be in that place of suspended illumination.
I love that answer. I love the truth in that answer. And I also like to take it even further, and in my meditation, think about, well, what does that actually look like in my life? If we're embodying this, how's my day going to be different? And I think for me, because I like to throw that GPS out in the future where it's going to be, I think for me, it's kind of, and I'm still working on my answer, I think it's like just being in flow state at all times, where I love working with people. I love co-creating, right? We love being in our teams and creating stuff. And I love just like living in that flow creator state of just creation. And then every day, here's one thing I want to have happen. And that's every morning when I open my computer, I have invitations to go speak and to co-create with other people. And it's just like, it's kind of magical surprise beyond my wildest imagination. I couldn't have even thought it myself. Just invitations to create at ever increasing effective levels.
I love that. And when you were talking about the 13th ray, part of a program that I'm creating, Conscious Regeneration, which is a callback to immortality, our eternal nature. But as you harmonize the 12 strands of DNA, there's a 13th harmonic, which starts the 24-stranded DNA. And then we talked about this last time, about there being complex structures, right? When you put the two strands together, that all of these new complex geometry start forming out, and they tap you in to 24 different types of holographic fibers. And this is really how we bend space and time. So I just love that you said that about the 13 rays.
Well, that's fascinating you say that. I've not heard that way before, but I have heard about, I channeled this one time. It was the 12 crystal skulls that were in a circle, right? And it's like, there's a time and a place where they all get regathered. And then when they have to all be in the same space, and then they activate the 13th above it, which activates a whole new geometry. So that's actually just exactly what you just said, that is, I didn't know that applied to the DNA as well. And then so it goes from 13 into 24, so it makes like a whole new ring that connect. Is that how you're seeing that?
Yep.
What?
Yep. It creates a whole new frequency based on the harmonizing of 12 separate frequencies.
Whoa.
Is the 13th harmonic.
Wow. I love that, and I want to hear that.
Oh, thank you so much, Giselle. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all that you do, the high priestess that you are here on this planet. And
you as well. You as well.
And oh, just so much love to you. Hopefully I'll get to hug you in person in Sedona next month.
I'll be there.
And that would be incredible. Yeah, you and Sandra. So
yes. Okay, lots of love to you, and thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please check out Giselle's book, The Codes of Immortality. Step into your immortality and infinite nature because you are an infinite being. So much love to you. Bye-bye.